is being discussed on the back channel. My own preference would be that this back channel is not allowed to continue indefinitely. Such processes cannot be, they are not open-ended. They have to come to an end at certain point. My own, I would be very much keen to see if we can, at this stage, when we are engaged with India on the back channel, can we extract some major steps from India to wit, release of all political prisoners, including the Hurriyat leadership, ranging from Sayyid Gilani to Dr. Qasim Faktu and Asiya Andrabi and Mashmasallat Alam and Shabir Shah, Yasin Malik, and all these people, and then Mirwais Farooq, all these people who are either under house arrest or in Tihar jail on fabricated charges, they should be released in my view, and that should be Pakistan's first demand, or rather upfront. So if this is done, that would give us some hope or signal that India is indeed willing to move ahead and resolve the issue. Now, the next question, obviously, there are other questions like demilitarization and then revocation of the over 3 million domiciles which India has issued to Indians to settle down in Jammu and Kashmir. So that would be again another step. But question is to how to now step back a little and then review the entire situation in its entirety, and then look at our options. Now, option one is that if we continue sticking to our traditional stance that the Kashmiris should be given the right to self-determination under a UN plebiscite to decide whether they want to join Pakistan or India. My own, diplomatically speaking and tactically speaking, I think we should keep on insisting on this, at least publicly, because once you move beyond your principled stated position beyond a certain point, then obviously you lose your strength and your strong position at the negotiating table. So this has to be done with finesse and with extra care. Second is that I was at a webinar yesterday and where we had some Indian thinkers or Indian, retired ambassadors, and even former Raw Chief A.S. Dullat was there. Similarly, Mr. Kulkarni was there. Mr. Kapil Kak was there from Kashmir. So, and they were all emphasizing that separatists have now no relevance now in occupied Kashmir. Their second contention was that Hurriyat has lost its ground and people do not really look up to them. Then they thought that 370 is gone forever. Don't expect statehood, restoration of statehood, yes, but that again would be consisting of Jammu and Kashmir. Forget about Ladakh. And even if statehood is restored, center would keep law and order powers with itself. So even statehood after delimitation exercise is complete, in which Jammu and Kashmir would be kind of, given equal representation, because this whole delimitation exercise is taking place to increase the presence of legislators from the Jammu region. So that kind of, vibes you get from India. Now, for us, it is important to go back to the drawing board. First thing is how can you build pressure on India internationally both internally and externally. Internationally, I think Pakistan has not been able to do enough. We have not seen the vigor and verve in our diplomacy, which was terribly required immediately after 5th August 2019. So much so that our foreign minister, unfortunately, could not even visit all the P5 countries in the wake of 5th August. He could only visit China. And then subsequently, we have seen that most of the things were done for domestic consumption, not to convince or to reach out to the world at large, create awareness. I know, and we all know, that we have limitations. Countries around the world do see in India as a rising power with an economic cloud. In Pakistan, obviously, is seen, it cannot be compared. Hence, countries like, Saudi Arabia and UAE would not like to offend India because of their economic commercial interests. We all know that there are serious limitations involved at the moment. But then there are other ways to do things. For example, nobody has stopped Pakistan or our missions abroad, our diplomats abroad, or Kashmiri diaspora abroad for that matter, to reorganize themselves, to mobilize and channelize their energies towards their cause. Even we have not seen that happening on a sustainable basis. There were a few events here and there, but if you do things episodically in fits and starts, then obviously you cannot build a momentum which is required in order to complement what people in occupied Kashmir are doing, or they are not allowed to do for that matter. They are living under a virtual lockdown, and they have very limited possibilities there left. So now, whether we do have any strategy which allows us to, gives us a way forward to reach out to international community, civil society organizations, think tanks, parliaments, and then try to create, pressures on their respective governments from within. Even we have not done that. So I am not really ready to accept that Pakistan and Kashmiris cannot do. The fact of the matter is we haven't really tried yet to organize ourselves to a certain, in a diplomatic manner, to do the fundamentals which are important in order to generate international pressure on India. Then obviously internal pressures, when you talk about internal dimension, Kashmiris are still putting up the resistance in both politically, I think politically more these days, but even that is very important, and India knows. Otherwise, India had already held the elections, had already released the Hurriyat leadership. So India knows very well that the situation in occupied Kashmir is still very tense, and people have not accepted the new status quo. So India is well aware of that. So hence whenever delimitation process completes and elections are held, we would know about the situation as to how, and that's why we still do not have a date for elections. Though delimitation process will continue by March next year, but the Indian government is still reluctant or hesitant to give any specific date for elections. They have not even indicated the year for elections, that elections will be held next year, which means that they are still not fully convinced that Kashmiris are with them, or they have been able to change their hearts and minds. So I think given this situation and the fear in the hearts of the Indian leadership, we still have much space. Once we have a well-calibrated, well-knit strategy regarding the internal situation in occupied Kashmir and the external dimension, and if we play our cards well, I'm confident that we will get a positive response from the international community. Only then can, we think of the options available in terms of resolving the problem. Unless India comes under pressure, which it is not at the moment in my view, we cannot push India towards resolving the problem, which is, a fair and just solution. Some people would discuss, would argue that we should now forget about a plebiscite. We can all agree with this contention as well, provided we are clear about other possibilities. We want to revert to the 4-point formula which was presented by Pervez Musharraf, or even we can, show more flexibility to have a status quo based solution. People are discussing about that in Pakistan and in India as well. Not in India, but more in Pakistan, as to what kind of a solution we are talking about now. Or we are talking about an independent Kashmir. These are the possibilities, but, we have to move in sequence, in a well-calibrated sequence. We cannot be lopsided in this matter, because Jammu and Kashmir, after all, its settlement, in my view, is a sine qua non for peace and prosperity in South Asia. And India understands that unless Kashmir issue is resolved, India cannot realize its regional and global aspirations. So we should not be thinking only that it is in Pakistan's interest or in Kashmir's interest that this problem is resolved. I think India too wants this problem to be resolved, but obviously on its own terms. Whether we can push India to be more flexible, to be more accommodative, that would require, efforts, in all directions. So far, my feeling is that we have not been up to the plate. And unless we are up to the plate, we would not be able to generate enough pressure on India. So at this point in time, the key or the crux of the matter is as to how we can put our efforts together to generate pressure, international and both internal and external pressure on India. That, in my view, is the key. And we have to strategize, keeping in view our limited resources. But we have a very strong, presence of Kashmiris around the world. And it saddens me to see that when there are occasions like 27th October or 5th February, we do not see, a real million march, either in London or in New York or in Berlin for that matter. So that also saddens me in different ways. So I think now it is mostly for the Kashmiri youth to take the charge themselves and do whatever is required to be done, Muzammil.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, sir. It was very valuable input. Asif Bhai, would you like to pitch in your thoughts from here?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Basit. I have been following you for a long time. Even when you were in Delhi, I would occasionally listen to you. But very recently, I have been following you on everything, whatever you have been speaking on Kashmir. What I want to understand from you is that post 5th August 2019, diplomatically, Pakistan had some glitches. Occasionally they have given some references from the Foreign Office. They have given some references to this so-called Gupkar gang. As rightly mentioned by one of the YouTube videos which I saw recently, it was a dialogue between India and its puppets. So is Pakistan in a position, because this is a very serious step to understand that what India has done on 5th August 2019, Kashmiris have lost whatever they had. Whatever India could have done the worst, they have already done. I belong to the ground, we cannot lose more. Whatever is the strength of Pakistan, there are two important strengths of Pakistan in Kashmir, Kashmiris on ground. One is the people who recognized themselves with Pakistan. The other one was the armed resistance which they had. The support was always there from Pakistan. Why is it that the biggest leverage of Pakistan in Kashmir was the armed support? Let's be honest about that. And why have these glitches been made in last few years and India is there? And why does it seem that Pakistan wants a dialogue? I, as a normal common Kashmiri, don't want dialogue with India. I want a resolution of the stuff. I don't want backdoor channels. I don't want backdoor talks. What I want is a thorough, proper diplomatic talks with India. They should be in public domain. India is the one who should be begging for talks. Why does it always why does it seem that we want to approach India for talks? Are we sending some wrong message to the people on ground who have sacrificed and are still ready to sacrifice a lot? As you rightly said, that although we are not able to express things blatantly, but under the cover, under the carpet, India can feel the heat. They know Kashmiris have not accepted it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Asif. I really appreciate your sentiments, your feelings. Yes, that is correct. Pakistan has been too, I think, garrulous in its diplomacy vis-a-vis India. And I know for a fact that how Pakistan's insistence to have talks with India have put us in a place where India ends up, giving us this as a concession. That if India is talking to Pakistan, it's a concession to Pakistan. As if, Pakistan talks or peace is only in Pakistan's interest. So, and there is a history to it. If you read my book, Hostility, you will find that every government in Pakistan went out of its way to mollycoddle New Delhi in different ways. And even the current dispensation in Pakistan, if you look, what our Prime Minister said, that he would love to see Prime Minister Modi coming back to power because he is the man with whom we can work out a solution on Kashmir. But we all knew as to what contained in the election manifesto of the BJP. At least I knew about it, and everybody, whosoever was following Kashmir, knew about it, that the BJP was all out there to revoke Article 370. At least I did not have any doubt. Such statements have always been very, very harmful. And that made India more hubristic in its approach vis-a-vis Pakistan, towards Pakistan and Kashmiris. Our inconsistencies especially during the last 15, 16 years, I would say, have now led to the present situation in many ways. So we are ourselves responsible for this. And now, since we had made mistakes in the past, now it is incumbent upon us to, now think differently and to come up with a strategy that helps create some pressure on India. We in Pakistan somehow have become complacent that our bombastic statements, to hoary statements, and they make a difference, and international community is listening to us when we make forceful statements. So diplomacy is not only about making statements. Statements should be complemented, supplemented by actual, a strategy or a plan of action. So that plan of action is missing, as I underlined earlier. I agree with you that it is India which should be begging for talks, but this time I can tell you that it was India which contacted Pakistan for back channel talks. So to that extent, I think we played our cards relatively well by not engaging with India. But then on the other hand, we were too quick to have this ceasefire renewal agreement. We were too quick to move a summary in our cabinet to resume the bilateral trade with India. That again was unwarranted. I'm glad that it did not finally happen. But that showed, to India that how inconsistent and confused Pakistan could be, and to the world as well. Because the world is watching you very closely. When you make such inconsistent statements, you do such irrelevant things, and the world also stops taking you seriously. So my own, and I sometimes feel very bad about the things which are happening around. But obviously now I'm no more in the government, though I do talk to people in the government, but I still strongly really feel that before we embark on or take up any kind of efforts we are playing in silos primarily, so unless we need to really have a great plan of action, and this is what is terribly missing at the moment. So unless we have a plan of action in place, we will continue giving contradictory signals to India and to the world. And that, in my view, would not go down well with Kashmiris. I know the despondency among Kashmiris. I'm aware of their frustration. But one thing which, gives me some hope is that though in such movements, freedom movements, they do not move in a linear form. Such movements would always have ups and downs. But I'm sure that seeing the situation of how Indian Muslims are living in India, there is no reason for Kashmiris to think that they can become Indian citizens, respectable Indian citizens. So I still feel that though we have lost much space since 5th August 2019, but it's not a lost case in my view. If we put our act together and get to roll up our sleeves, and I can assure you that we can still achieve many things in different areas. But I do not see the desire to undertake such laborious initiative or undertaking. That is somehow missing. I will be honest with you guys, because whereas I very much want Kashmiris to breathe in freedom, and at the end of the day, you people have been making sacrifices. Yes, there was time when Pakistan was kind of helping the indigenous movement, and then according to international law, as if you are a lawyer, you would know that the international principle of erga omnes clearly makes incumbent upon the international community to even support armed struggles against foreign occupation. So the international law is on our side. Then you have UNGA resolution of December 1974, 3314, which gives you legitimacy in terms of your struggle against foreign occupation. But India has very smartly portrayed the entire Jammu Kashmir struggle as terrorism, especially after 9/11, and we have not been able in turn to build up a counter narrative, or our own narrative for that matter, that it is not about terrorism. And the fact that US subsequently also proscribed or listed Hizbul Mujahideen as a terrorist organization, I think was the last nail in the coffin, in the sense that Hizbul Mujahideen, we should have anticipated that and should not have at least made our efforts that would not have done. But now that has been done. So I think, we can, as I said, this Kashmir struggle has different dimensions. It has to be fought differently, diplomatically, legally. The question is there any, have we been able to have a plan of action? That is my fundamental question, and I do not see that in place. Hence, we are not, achieving much in our incoherent efforts, I would say. Had we been able to brought everything under one umbrella, diplomatic, political, military, all these things, different dimensions to this struggle, and under one umbrella, and then creating linkages in different ways, that would have been far better. But I'm still hopeful. Having said everything, it was not meant to depress you guys. I'm still very, very hopeful that the time will come that we will realize that we need to really, do something. We need to get serious about it. It's a serious matter. It is not about a territory. It involves millions of Kashmiris, millions of, and they have given huge sacrifices. So their sacrifices should not go waste. And we have to, as I said, you young people have to think more creatively. And I'm frankly speaking, and I will be very honest with you guys, I do not know who is listening to me, but I am sick and tired of these conferences which are being held in Pakistan, meaningless conferences and seminars where everybody comes, speaks. There are 12, 16 speakers. They come and say their piece and go. And then next at the night, we see their faces on our television screens. I wish Kashmir would have been. It had made some difference, but it has not, unfortunately. Now, we have to think very seriously as to what are the options available. I am now kind of, more tilting towards, or my inclination is more and more as to how we can explore possibilities of putting some, or convincing India for that matter, that is there any possibility, because under UN Charter Article 94, things can be referred to ICJ. I know India would never agree, but behind the scenes, many things can be done. If resolutions cannot be, if India does not have or cannot agree, or is not amenable to have a plebiscite in Kashmir, then what options are available? If 4-point formula even is not accepted, because I remember raising this issue many times with Doval, informally, that what about the 4-point formula? And he would just give me a smirk and would not respond. So I even knew then that what India is up to. So we are in a kind of, in a cleft stick, and but we can get out of this, because the people of Jammu and Kashmir are with their own cause of freedom, and I have no doubt about that. So my emphasis again and again, then we need to put our act together and organize the entire struggle process in a way that it is able to wield some pressure on India internally and externally. And that to me is the nub of the matter.
Very rightly said, sir. It's very true that Kashmiri youth is frustrated and very, very under pressure because of two reasons. One, they have to suffer the occupation and resist, try to resist against the occupation on all fronts. And also they have to make the world understand their narrative, that there's a difference between a militant and a struggling freedom fighter for their right, which is recognized by UN. So it's very, and also definitely that we need to put our act together and come under one umbrella, very much needed. What do you think, Mukhtar Bhai?
Thank you very much, WKF, for having me here. Ambassador Basit Sahab, Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. What a pleasure.
Shukriya Jam. In fact, I want to correct it here that Hizbul Mujahideen was not recognized as a terrorist organization, but Sayyid Salahuddin was designated as the terrorist. So Hizbul Mujahideen is not a terrorist organization, as far as my information is concerned. Number one, I want that clarification here to clarify that. Number two, the very important thing is that Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru in 47 said that गिसते गिसते ये 370 जो भी उन्होंने ये किया तो ये गिसते गिसते गिस जाएगा और यहाँ से कायद आज़म अली मोहम्मद जिन्ना अलैहिर्रहमा ने फरमाया कि ये कश्मीर हमारी शहरग है. लेकिन ये शहरग अब हमने क्या किया कि गिसते गिसते ये गिस गया, लेकिन the Kashmiri people, they stand against this in military occupation from particularly from last 32 years, and we are giving our blood and sweat to get the freedom. लेकिन on the other side, when we see कि कायद आज़म अलैहिर्रहमा ने फरमाया था कि ये कश्मीर शहरग है पाकिस्तान की, तो लेकिन गिसते गिसते ये यहाँ से गिस गई और हम गुपकार गैंग पे पहुंच गए कि they are somehow what foreign ministry few months back given what it called that statement that गुपकार गैंग जो है तो they are the representatives of Kashmir. So बहरहाल ये सूरत हाल है पाकिस्तान की डिप्लोमेसी की. और दूसरी बात यह है कि मतलब हम there are so many hats, as Ambassador Basit said that had we had been this, then had we, so there are many hats. So Ambassador Basit साहब, मैं ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि ये जो heads है ये कब हम translate करें in real कि what should we do, because the very important thing is that what Kashmir are giving the sacrifices, they are still अगर ऐसा होता, and they are giving us the notion, as you rightly said, you were in some webinar where all the what it called intelligentsia of the India, they tried to tell us through the webinars, they send us the vibes that we are not going to do this, Hurriyat is irrelevant, and this is. So don't you think that we have fall in the trap when I say our, I mean to say the Pakistani foreign minister said that he pins hope on the Gupkar gang to dialogue for the dialogue with the New Delhi.
Yeah, that is very unfortunate, Mukhtar Sahab, that we have come to now to a situation where we are openly saying that the position of Pakistan and Gupkar gang is the same. So this is an irony of the whole situation. And I, for one, I've always raised my voice against and I have openly criticized all these voices who have been saying that Gupkar gang or Gupkar alliance is what Pakistan's position is. I do not really know as to why this is so, because as I said, I am no more part of the government system. But I have seen during the last 10-15 years, I do see, I can feel a sense of kind of, Pakistan's desire to reach out to India, because one narrative which is being built in Pakistan is that all our economic problems engender from the fact that we do not have a good relationship with India. Hence, this statement that we need to move from geopolitics to geoeconomics. This is one of the narratives which is being built. It's not a new thing. This narrative has been there for the last so many years. That if Pakistan were to resolve its economic difficulties, it needs good relations with India, because hostility between Pakistan and India has not allowed the two countries to take benefit of the globalization process, nor has that allowed regional connectivity and interdependence to take place. So all these things are being discussed and discussed openly in Pakistan, and there are very strong lobby like industrialists, and business chambers who are day in and day out. They pursue this agenda to have trade with India, have economic and commercial relations with India. So, they forget that our economic problems are not because of our relations or no relations with India for that matter. Pakistan was far better, far ahead than India in the 50s and 60s. And even when after, having fought wars with India, we were doing quite well. Our economic problems are because of our economic lack of economic mismanagement, lack of good governance, corruption. These are the major sources of our economic problems, not our relations with India. But in Pakistan, unfortunately, the way we build our narratives, or we make false assumptions about things superficially. So now, there is a very strong lobby in Pakistan which really wants to reach out to India, because they believe that problems, like our being grey list of the FATF is because of India. If we reach out to India, perhaps, Pakistan will be able to get out of FATF grey list, and then at least it would not face those pressures which we do on issues of terrorism and so on and so forth. So that is one way of looking at things, and there are people, very strong lobby is working towards these things. I think people like yourself, you have to understand that Pakistan, at least Kashmiris will have to understand that Pakistan, being a kind of a country which has been through many difficult times, our economy is not really doing well. We are under pressure from IMF. Then Afghanistan, it is another problem on our western border, and we are very much disquiet and worried about the situation as to how will that pan out. We do not know. So that is also kind of putting us on the defensive at the moment. So there are many variables which are affecting or kind of restricting the government in different ways. I fully understand your frustration, but Pakistan, the country is going through a difficult time. And now, day before yesterday, FATF decided to keep us on the grey list for a few more months or for a year, I do not know. So that is a kind of, a Damocles sword which is hanging on Pakistan. So there are issues, there are problems, but I do not subscribe to this idea for a moment that our internal problems, our economic difficulties, are because of our unfriendly relations with India. I think Pakistan has been able to do far better even under the most difficult of circumstances with India. But it is primarily because of our own mismanagement, internal mismanagement, which is causing us economic pains. I am then, unfortunately, people who are at the helm, they do not have the understanding of the importance of Jammu and Kashmir. dispute. For example, this government took 1 year to appoint to the chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on Kashmir. 1 year. So that showed, and that not only showed to Pakistan and Kashmir, but to India and to the world at large, that how much importance we give to Kashmir. So, such steps may appear kind of, anodyne, of no consequence, but people watch you internationally. So I think unless we ourselves give importance to Kashmir, I have been saying for the last 5 years now that we should have appointed a special envoy for Jammu and Kashmir, which nobody really listened. This was not after 5th August 2019. When I was in service, I had been saying this, that we need to up the ante. Then, I have been saying that we need to amend the Azad Jammu and Kashmir, interim constitution of Azad Jammu and Kashmir. 2 major amendments, Article 2 and Article 11, if they are amended, that would give us, some hope. And that is again not unfortunately done. So first we need to at least show to the world that Pakistan is giving importance to Jammu and Kashmir issue. Unless we do it ourselves, we cannot expect the world to respond to our demarches. But for that to happen, I think, as I underscored earlier, we need to have a good, solid plan of action in place.
Yes, you're right. Also, then the question arises, sir. According to the current situation that's holding in Afghanistan, leaving of NATO and US, and what do you think? How India is looking into it, and what will be its effects on India's policy, and if there will be any effect on India's policy on Kashmir, and how Pakistan will try to cash in that moment, because I think it's a very important moment in history if we try to use it rightly.
And I want to add it that as Ambassador Basit said, that India tried her best to portray Kashmir struggle as what it called the terrorism after 9/11, and they who were terrorists after the 9/11 are on the table of America right now. So how you will see the impact of the Afghanistan on Kashmir?
No, I think we all know that how duplicitous US has been. It funded Mujahideen during the Soviet occupation. Even Mujahideen were invited to the White House by President Reagan. And then after 1989, after the collapse of the erstwhile Soviet Union, Pakistan and Afghanistan, we were left high and dry. And then some sanctions were imposed on Pakistan. So we all know about this duplicity, and this duplicity is a kind of, one of the principles of international relations. So we all know how things in power politics or realpolitik functions. We are all aware of that. Now, Afghanistan obviously is very important for Pakistan in particular, because we have a long border of 2,400 kilometers with Afghanistan, and thank God that we have been able to fence it now. So it would not be the situation as it existed or it was in the 1990s. But obviously, Taliban are determined. The fact of the matter, the fact that U.S. reached out to the Taliban and the U.S. they agreed, had an agreement on 29 February 2020 last year, showed that by U.S. is now moving away from this notion of nation building, and they fully realized that they could not win this war against the Taliban. So momentum is on the Taliban side. Some intelligence reports are suggesting that Taliban would be able to take over Kabul within 6 months after September. I do not know, but this is what the feeling is. And the way Tajikistan are making, they're proceeding, especially in the north of Afghanistan, that is very surprising for me, because in the south and east of Afghanistan, I could understand. But in the north, where mostly people are Tajik or Uzbek, making inroads there is a big achievement in my view, especially their control of the Tajik-Afghanistan entry point. So the momentum is on the Taliban side. The Kabul dispensation is worried. How much time does it take? I can't predict. But if the Taliban take over, my own feeling is that this time round, the Taliban would be more careful because whereas on the one hand they would like they would like to have more and more domestic support. At the same time, they would also like that, it is not the situation where only 2 or 3 countries around the world recognize their government, as was the case in 1996. Only Pakistan, Saudi Arabia and UAE recognized the Taliban government then. But this time round, they would be more flexible. There would be less emphasis on Talibanization per se, quote unquote. They would be more flexible. They would be more open to the ideas about women empowerment, minorities issues, and so on and so forth. But this is worrying for India, no doubt, because they have invested close to $3 billion. So I was not surprised when I read media reports that India had reached out to the Taliban in Doha. And I'm sure they are in touch with each other, because the Taliban would like to be in touch with India to also put some pressure on Pakistan as well. So this is how, Taliban are a very smart cookie. They know how to play their cards, and they are playing their cards very well so far. So they would not mind to have some kind of an interaction with India to take care of some of their, interests, at least economic interests, and keep them in good humor, to also put some pressure on Pakistan as well, so that Pakistan does not try to push them to the wall. So this is how things are done. But my own, whether it has any impact on Kashmir, I do not think so. This is what India is trying to, build this again, this narrative that, once there is a Taliban government, militancy would get strengthened, or extremism will, get its fuel from Afghanistan. I do not. India has been saying in the past as well about the penetration into occupied Kashmir by Daesh and Al-Qaeda and so on and so. But we do not see that nowhere in Jammu and Kashmir. It is all indigenous. People are themselves, from Burhan Wani to Riaz Naiko, all these, young people they're all local Kashmiris, and they have been. So I do not even find Kashmiris, frankly speaking, to be receptive to these ideas. Kashmiris are educated. Literacy rate is almost 100%. They are literate people. They are more urbanized as compared to Afghan. So cultures are different. So I'm hesitant to accept that in any way Kashmiri struggle would be influenced by the Taliban, or if the Taliban take over in Afghanistan. Dynamics in Afghanistan are absolutely totally different. They cannot be compared with what the dynamics in occupied Kashmir. They are too different. We're talking about two different peoples, actually, in my view.
Very rightly said, sir. Thank you so much. I just want to tell the audience we will be taking the questions by the end of the discussion. So please stay put with us. Muzamil Bhai, would you like to
Sure.
something?
Yes, I have quite a few friends messaging me, so I'm probably going to have to ask their questions instead of mine. Some of them are asking in regard to how we can humanize the conflict, and a lot of the times what happens in conflict is, particularly when states are involved, is state interests are discussed, and they talk about terrorism, they talk about violations and human rights, but the individual case studies and the humanization of the conflict is sometimes lost. If people remember Ahad Tamimi, the Palestinian girl, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Palestinian girl that was arrested, she became an icon. The same with that North Korean girl. Is there a way that Pakistan can humanize this conflict and maybe somehow amplify the voices from the ground and the representation from the ground, so individual cases? So we have people like Wamik Farooq, Tufail Matu, Samir Rah, Insha Mushtaq, Hibba Nisar, young children that were mutilated or killed or blinded. And a lot of the times in international theaters, in think tanks and different locations, these narratives work a lot better and more influential than generalizing India as a global terrorist, or at least regional terrorist. That's one part of the question. How do we sensitize the international world to the ongoing conflict in Kashmir? The other part of my question, probably an extension, what would your recommendation and suggestion be to those people that are living in the diaspora, how we can better our movement? I know how passionate you are about the youth, particularly those in the diaspora, because of course the luxuries and the privileges that we have, and we recognize them. How do we better that work? How do we amplify that work that we're already doing? And of course, it's also probably important to say that no work can be done without the support of the state. So how can we coordinate efforts and kind of marry the two efforts at state level and grassroots level to amplify the narrative, particularly in the context of this EU Disinfo Lab information that we know what India is doing? It would probably be phenomenal if the diaspora, indigenous Kashmiris, are able to speak in different forums and correct the narrative instead of having the Indian stooges and propagandists and fake Twitter handles that pretend to be Kashmiris but aren't. So it's a matter of countering the narrative and sensitizing the international world to the ongoing conflict in Kashmir.
Yeah, I think these are two very interesting and interconnected questions. Humanizing the conflict, yes, why not? But, again, who should be doing that? We look to the state to do this, or NGOs, Kashmir-related NGOs would try to do these things. I remember when I was in Geneva, we would invite a few, women, or representatives from occupied Kashmir to present their case at the Human Rights, then Commission, now it is Human Rights Council. So Pakistan government used to do these things when Kashmiris, their leaders were allowed to travel abroad. But now we are having a new government in place in New Delhi, which is so much averse to, the entire leadership is behind bars at the moment. But obviously, we still have opportunities, possibilities to do all these things. Now, how to do it, that is a question. I think I would be rather counting on to come up with suggestions as to how to go about it. And I'm sure the government of Pakistan or our missions, especially in the Western countries, would be more than willing to respond to these things positively if they have some, we can obviously these iconic, we need to create icons of, resistance, and that can be done. And that is not difficult, especially in this age where we have social media and information is disseminated just so quickly. So, all these things can be done provided we know what we are doing and how to sustain such efforts. Now, what to do that, then when we create some blunders in the process as well somehow. For example, I feel so bad about it when I retweeted a tweet which was not of Kashmiris, and that still haunts me in many ways, but that was done in the spur of the moment somehow. Then, our mission in New York put up a photo of a Palestinian girl saying a Kashmiri girl had so many pellet gun wounds. So, I mean, we need to be slightly more careful, and this would be move according to move systematically rather than making individual efforts. We can give a humanistic face to the Kashmiri struggle, and that can be done very easily. It's not a rocket science. It can be done very easily, provided we all know who is doing what. And then diaspora, you are in a better, especially in the West. I think I've been telling Pakistani diaspora in particular that do not do politics of Pakistan in your wherever you are, whether you are in UK or in the US. Do politics for Pakistan. The more you mainstream yourself in the local politics, you will be more effective for Pakistan and Kashmir. The problem with Kashmiri and Pakistani diaspora is that we restrict ourselves. We do not reach out to people who really matter, and then we do not participate in the local politics. And unless our diaspora makes itself relevant to the local politics, it will not be effective. It doesn't matter if you arrange hundreds of seminars in London, which is attended only by Kashmiris and Pakistanis. It would not really have the impact which you are looking for. So you need to reach out, get out of your comfortable zones, spread yourself, and then I think our young people also need to be on top of everything, especially on Kashmir, history of Kashmir, the legal resolutions, what happened before the independence, what happened after the independence. All these things are very important, and what has been happening since then. Even I have seen Kashmiris in Pakistan, unfortunately, who do not know about Kashmir's history, who are clueless about the Kashmir dispute itself. So unless we organize ourselves and create more and more awareness, more and more interest, all our efforts would dissipate somewhere without making any impact. So the time has really come to get serious about this. To get serious about this cause which is so dear to us. My heart bleeds when I see the young people, generations of Kashmiris who have lost opportunities. I really cry at times that what is really happening, and we are not taking this whole thing. We have politicized the entire thing and using these things for domestic political consumption, for our personal, aggrandizement as well. So Kashmir is much more than that. So let's, sitting in Islamabad, I can always give you sermons, but Muzammil, the question is that, you have to take charge, you guys, wherever you are, whether in UK or US, France, Germany, but you have to put your resources together. Individual efforts do make a difference, but I think you have to pool in all your resources and come up with a solid, comprehensive, one strategy as to. Unless we do that, my feeling is and my apprehension is we will continue making noises. But no, and those noises, noises do not make a difference, frankly speaking. We can create a din here and there, but that would evaporate somewhere after some time. If you want to make things impactful, we should be knowing as to what we are doing. And that is, in my view, is important. Otherwise, people like me come and go, people like you come and go, but we will continue to be having the problem there for the future generations to suffer. I do not want Kashmiris to continue suffering. I want their situation to improve, their lot to improve, and then they are allowed to live in freedom. Enough is enough, frankly speaking. Enough is enough. Kashmiris have given huge sacrifices, and people in Pakistan even do not realize that. And that is the problem. And we have grown indifferent in many ways to the situation on the ground. And that we need to retrieve, retrieve the situation and then think of there are possibilities. There are many possibilities, countless possibilities, I can assure you. But the question is how to organize all these things. And I'm sure you guys know far better than I do. And you guys have far more energy, far more intellectual depth to come up to confront ever new challenges which are coming in your way.
Ji, sir, the thing is, the struggle is very much humane, but one world failed to somehow able to see it. Senator Jamal has also joined us, and Kosher Bhai also. It's your turn, and then we go to Senator Jamal. Kosher Bhai, can you hear me? I think he is again not on the mic. Senator Jamal, will you please, can you continue, and then I will get the question.
Thank you so much for the invite. I absolutely agree with some of the points made by Muzammil and Basit Saab, that we have to humanize this conflict, the suffering. We cannot just go on, be angry and cry about it, and continue to suffer. We have to change our perspective and thinking. We can learn a lot from the recent Palestine conference, where how the Palestinians made their case online, which won them at least the social media and the media narrative, because of their the struggle online and this continuous post that we see that we saw coming. And what Muzammil said about we can definitely start with this, the pictures of these little girls and boys, or people use their pictures who have suffered and who have been attacked by these pellet guns and other kinds of suffering. We can use their short stories and use their pictures to humanize the conflict and use it online, because it's more of a social media narrative war right now that we have to fight. And I agree with the points made here. I actually joined. I'm thankful for Basit Saab, how he explained everything, Pakistan's narrative and the historic context and everything. But I actually am more interested in learning about what the Kashmiri people think about this recent meeting, the Gupkar gang meeting. What are their sentiments and thinking about this meeting, and what do the people in Kashmir want Pakistan and other people? How do they want us to take this movement on? I want to learn this. Thank you.
Ji, then Kosher Bhai, can you hear me? Kosher Bhai, can you hear
Somebody, from occupied Kashmir can enlighten us as to how they look at the situation. So that
yes, I think Kosher and Mukhtar and
they're all from Karachi. Sometimes, due to the security reason, they just like to listen.
I understand. I understand.
There's a huge crackdown. Our accounts are suspended. We are actually suffering a full dictatorship from India over Twitter.
We know.
Please.
I mean, just imagine. I mean, the people of Kashmir can't even talk online, even in these spaces.
Yeah.
So just imagine the kind of brutality they must face on ground.
Absolutely.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a pleasure to have you here in the space.
Thank you so much for coming. अच्छा, मेरा क्वेश्चन जो है वो इंडियन ऑक्युपाइड कश्मीर से है, जो कि बहुत यूथ्स ने मुझे सेंड किया. अगर मैं कुछ ही क्वेश्चंस आपके सामने रख रहा हूँ यहाँ पे, तो सबसे पहले उन्होंने कहा कि as we all know, we the people of Indian occupied Kashmir have been suppressed, threatened, and are not able to speak up openly or protest against this illegal occupation or human rights violation these days. So what is your message for the people of Kashmir to encourage them? Is the first question. And there is the second question. The youth of Kashmir who are enthusiastic, who really want to do something for the freedom of Kashmir, but they don't have the roadmap these days ahead. As you said, Kuwait is not at the position right now as it was. And the third question is from the sisters and the mothers and the fathers of Kashmir, and I have got many questions, since a week. The Kashmiri prisoners, both young and children, men and women, who are in different jails in Indian states, and their state of health is at stake, as media is not covering them nowadays, and the lawyers who used to fight them in the Kashmir, but now they cannot go there to other states of India, and they are being also, sent to jail, and no media coverage for them. So what should we do for them? That's the question for you. Thank you.
No, I think all these questions are very painful. And one thing which I know for a fact is that neither Indians nor the Indian media is on your side. And you are working against very, very heavy odds. And that is the problem. That is correct that, what to do. That is the question. What Kashmiris should do who are living under foreign occupation and where, they are facing the worst kind of state terrorism, suppression. So that becomes, and I really salute your courage and your perseverance in the way you have been putting up resistance to Indian occupation. What else can you do? I really have no answer to this question except to say that keep your hopes alive because these are difficult times for you. I fully understand that. Keeps your hopes alive in your own struggle, in your own faith, in your own courage. And that would help you to sustain and endure this difficult phase. This will also, hopefully, inshallah, pass. This will be behind us if we keep our faith in our struggle alive. And then, there is no roadmap. We all know your entire leadership is either under house arrest or behind bars. And this is what the Indian tactic is, to keep all the Hurriyat or your leaders away from your side so that to render them irrelevant after a few years. And this is what the Indian narrative is. But I'm sure the resistance will find its new leadership. I mean, there won't be a vacuum for very long. But you have been resisting the Indian occupation after every difficult time, whether it was in the 90s or 20s or more recently after Burhan Wani's martyrdom. So you have been fighting the resistance. You know how to do it, from stone pelting to. You have been going through all these difficult phases. But you do not see the leadership. I remember once, I asked Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani Sahab that if he was no more, it would leave a huge vacuum in the occupied Kashmir. So he smiled and then he said, Mr. High Commissioner, don't worry about that. The people of Kashmir know how to continue with their struggle, and he was sure that even if he was no more, Jammu, the people of Kashmir, the valiant people of Kashmir would find their way out as to how to deal with the resistance. So I am confident that you people would find As for the prisoners, this was one of my points that, if at all we are engaging with India on the back channel, this should be one of the points which should be given to the Indian side upfront, that all Kashmiri leaders, political prisoners should be released forthwith. If that cannot be done, then obviously there is no point to engage with India even on the back channel. I have been kind of, stressing on my government on this. So let's hope that this is already being discussed, but and then also to get assurances from India that they would not, this arresting people, arresting especially young people, this should come to an end once and for all. But that is not going to happen very easily or quickly. Rest assured about that. It will not come very easily. And I do not really know for how long we would like to continue with this back channel diplomacy or back channel interaction, so to say, because it's not a formal it. So we will see how things really pan out or evolve in the coming weeks and months. We will have.
I think this will probably.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Can I just pitch in a few points?
Sure. But just let me just pitch in Mukhtar Bhai and
Sure. Okay.
So just wanted to give one point, sir. This is no doubt a very, very difficult time from suffering the burning of their saffron fields with millions of not just hundreds and thousands of dollars burning of saffron fields. From there to cutting of the apple trees, from burning of chinar trees, from leaving hundreds and hundreds of dogs in streets. I tell you, it's a very difficult time for them. And I also tell you that Kashmiri youth is losing patience. They don't have to think about how long. We should just keep on struggle, because they see a world outside and then they see a world inside, which is completely different from each other. So they are definitely losing patience. I would just like to go on to Mukhtar Bhai or Asif Bhai. Any one of you, please come on the mic. Good side, guys.
Thank you, WKFM. What I would like to request, because Abdul Basit Saab is already interacting with the people and government in Pakistan, what I would like to impress upon, I just need to understand the diplomacy of Pakistan. For example, out of these FATF, 26 out of 27 points have been taken care of, and Pakistan is still in the grey list. US wants to pull out from the Afghanistan, but Pakistan is paying the price. US needs help from Pakistan, but Pakistan should pay the price. We need to relook at everything. What sort of a diplomacy, what sort of results are we looking at? And one more major important thing, what I want to say, as Abdul Basit Saab has spoken very clearly, that absolutely zero compromise on the principle of Pakistan, the principle of Kashmir, occupied Kashmir. India has from times immemorial destroyed through detrimental to the relationship between India and Pakistan. It's India which through its soft diplomacy has done the major damage. I personally feel that the most important thing Pakistan needs to do right now is to go back, take a couple of steps back, go back to the board and look what exactly has gone wrong and where we are now is not because India is a very strong opponent or anything, that we have not been able to pitch the stuff properly. India is not, in the last 7 years, India has suffered huge economic losses, and in last 2 years post I mean, this needs to be understood thoroughly that they have messed up, and this is the advantage making it happen. Thank you.
Yeah, that is correct, Asif. Our diplomacy is somewhat in disarray from Kashmir to FATF. We have not been able to really achieve much. I had thought that after 3 years, now that we have complied with almost 26 out of 27 fully and partially with the last one as well, Pakistan should have been removed from the grey list, but to our shock, we have 6 more points to take care of. So this shows that we have not been active to do our homework in advance, reach out to FATF, 39 members of the FATF, at least, those countries who could have supported us in the plenary, because we are not sitting in the plenary, we are not part of the FATF. I had thought that we would have done our homework at least, but it seems that we focused mostly on implementing changing our laws, implementing recommendations domestically, but we did not take care of the diplomatic side of the entire exercise. And there we failed, unfortunately. So there are many problems, that goes without saying.
Sri Mukhtar Bhai, would you like to comment on it?
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Ji, sir, bilkul.
Mr. Basit, I want to know the shortcomings that every region has that Nelson Mandela was in one region, Aung San Suu Kyi was in other region, Chagtai Posh was in other region. The very important thing is that we have the oldest leader, Sayyid Ali Gilani, from last 10 years, 12 years, he's in confinement. He's the longest, Asia's longest serving detainee we have, because Chagtai Posh was the longest serving leader. And now Masrat Alam has been the longest serving leader of the Asia. And the Africa region has the Nelson Mandela, and we have internationally recognized by the Amnesty International, Shabir Ahmad Shah. He is what it called. Well, that I mean to say that we have 3. That Aung San Suu Kyi got a Nobel Peace Prize for what it called for the democratic rights, to fighting for the democratic rights. We have in the small region, we have all the 3. So what are the shortcomings as far as we Kashmir are concerned? We have given a lot of sacrifices that in just 8 million people or 9 million people, we have all the 3. So what are the shortcomings of the resistance as far as your idea is concerned?
And we have not been able to project the struggle in its correct true perspective. Hence, Kashmir struggle is now seen in most of the Western countries as part of the problem. As you know, as I said earlier, nobody is buying our narrative. Hence, humanizing of the entire conflict, as somebody suggested. Muzammil mentioned, and then Sana also mentioned, it is so important that we put this entire struggle in its correct perspective. Obviously, India has been very skillfully has damaged the entire struggle by portraying it as terrorism, as violence. And then some mistakes on our part as well, as I mentioned earlier. We have been inconsistent in our approach. And remember one thing, India has always used these bilateral talks to undermine Pakistan's principal position on Jammu and Kashmir, weaken our position on Jammu and Kashmir. Every time from Sharm el-Sheikh joint statement to Islamabad joint statement of 2015, if you go through those joint statements, you will find that how our position, Pakistan's position on Kashmir has been diluted in different ways. So it started from, Musharraf's 4-point formula, then 6 January 2004 statement which he signed, and that was the beginning of portraying the Kashmiri struggle as terrorism. We committed mistakes ourselves. We gave enough munition to India to build its narrative. So I hope that we would not repeat those mistakes. And now with, but unfortunately, I am not very convinced that you would not repeat those mistakes. We have been doing it all along. But the question is that have we learned from our past mistakes? My feeling is that we have not, but I would pray that we to repeat those mistakes. And that is the reason the Western countries are, and then the Indian clout, their economic interests, their strategic interests, they see India to counter China. So that is more, if President Trump and President Biden say openly that they see China and Russia as their biggest threats or to the world liberal order, and India is a country which is seen as to counterpoise these, especially China. So then obviously your diplomatic space becomes limited against India. So these are the real problems. That's why we cannot, though there is no dearth of Nelson Mandela's in occupied Kashmir, from Gilani Saab to Dr. Qasim Faktu, who is behind bars since last 28 years now. Basarat Alam you mentioned, Asian Rabi Saiba, and all these heroes of the struggle, nobody takes notice of them. Nobody even knows their name outside Jammu and Kashmir and Pakistan, for that matter, honestly speaking, because we ourselves have not been able to project them. Then there are divisions in Kashmir as well. Hurriyat Conference got divided very soon after its formation. And then we have quislings in Kashmir and everywhere, So there are people from within who have damaged the Kashmir cause. Now this Gupkar gang, their presence in New Delhi, I think speaks for itself as to where these people are and how they're damaging the Kashmir cause. Because they don't believe in that cause to begin with. So you have many problems, many serious issues at hand, and your struggle is increasingly becoming more and more difficult and more problematic, I would say, given Pakistan's weaknesses diplomatically, given the world, the world is changing, India is being being promoted as a counterweight to China, then regional situation in terms of Afghanistan. I think you need to, again, have a clear roadmap as to how you want to go ahead. And we need to project these leaders ourselves to begin with. How many of us, make deliberate, conscious effort to project these icons of the freedom movement? I do not see any desire to do that. In fact, among Kashmiris and Pakistanis as well, they do not know who Shabir Shah is and who. They would perhaps know about Yasin Malik, Mir Wais Farooq, and Mir Wais Gilani Sahab, but Sayyid Ali Sheikh Gilani Sahab. But people are not in Pakistan, even not aware. They do not bother to. So there is lack of interest, lack of increasingly, dwindling commitment.
Sir, cut it on, but how do you advise the Pakistani government? What do you?
That I have been advising, for the last so many years now.
Policy.
I have been doing that, and rest assured, I want to, assure all of you who are listening to me today that I'm playing my role. I'm not sitting idle. I'm doing whatever is possible for me to do. Rest assured. I have been in touch with, everyone. And I have been giving them things in writing as well, giving my recommendations in detail, explaining to them behind closed doors meetings. So I'm playing my part, I'm trying my best, but obviously this is what I can do at the moment. Let's hope that some of my recommendations do find some resonance among the decision-making circles, and we will see some improvement in the days ahead or weeks ahead. I am not totally pessimistic, frankly speaking. I'm optimist about the situation, though we are going through a very difficult phase. But something good, inshallah, will come out of the present situation.
Inshallah, sir. Sorry to barge in. I'm sorry. Apologies to host as well. मुझे बहुत सारे messages आ रहे हैं लोगों के कि जो यहाँ पर हमारे especially जो कश्मीरी guest speakers हैं. I totally understand कि बासित साहब is our lead speaker, लेकिन जो हमारे दूसरे कोशर मुख्तार भाई साद और अभी रिहाना ने भी हमें ज्वाइन किया, मुजम्मिल को भी बहुत सारे लोग सुनना चाहते हैं, तो मैं बस ये रिक्वेस्ट कन्वे करना चाहती थी कि वो लोग सुनना चाहते हैं इन लोगों से ज्यादा. Thank you.
Please. I also want to listen to them, frankly speaking.
Yeah, but the session is with Basit Sahib, so people just have to.
No, it is good to have these people also. This will also help me to have some ideas.
Of course, that's why actually we formulated a whole panel so that it's more of a discussion. So Muzammil Bhai, would you like to go on because you've been waiting for quite long now?
Thank you very much.
Muzammil Bhai, can you hear me?
Yes, am I audible? You can hear me? Excellent.
Yes, we can.
Basit Sahab, we've asked so many questions to you, and I into a slightly lighter moment. Would you tell us two things? Number one is, while you were the ambassador, the kind of interactions that you've had with the Hurriyat, stories or any tidbits or pieces of nuggets of information or knowledge that they may have imparted to us. And the second part is that knowledge that you've become the president of PICS. In your capacity, what activities can we anticipate for the institution to carry out in regards to Kashmir in the future?
No, you can count on me wherever I am. You will always find me fully dedicated to the cause of Kashmir. That goes without saying. As far as my meetings, tidbits or some nuggets, I think if you go through my book Hostility, you will find many things about my meetings with the Hurriyat leadership, my encounters with even Sheikh Abdullah, because Dr. Farooq Abdullah, he and my father-in-law, they were together in the UK. They were working together. Yeah, so they were working in the same hospital. And Dr. Farooq Abdullah would frequently come to my parents-in-law place and have, Pakistani food there. And they were friends then, So when I got posted to New Delhi, so in one of the events at the presidency, Dr. Farooq Abdullah was there, and when he saw that I'm there, so he shook hands with me, and my wife told him that, my father or her father, would talk about you. So then oh yes, I remember him, and I remember your mother as well. But then, subsequently, he would always try to shake hands with me in public gatherings, in public events, but I would always avoid him. And on one occasion, he told me that, Basit, why you avoid me? Why don't you shake hands with me or, talk to me in public events? But then I responded to him that I have all the respect for him, but as a Pakistani and a person who has great love for the Kashmir cause, I think at one point I did tell him, and I mentioned this in my book as well, that I feel sorry, for you guys, the way you have damaged the Kashmir cause. So after that, he never tried to reach out to me again. So, my stay in New Delhi was in many ways important, and I had because Modi had just, won the election, and that was his first term. So I had seen from close quarters, Ajit Doval working with him, and then trying to, convince them that they need to resolve the Kashmir dispute. But they had their own plans. Bhadev, who was then the Secretary General of the BJP and who was given the task to work out an alliance with the PDP as well. So I had a very long discussion with him, but unfortunately I never liked that guy, nor did he like me for a variety of reasons because of our meeting, which went somewhat undiplomatic from his side primarily. And then I requested him many times for a meeting, but he would never oblige me. Even then he told me, I remember, and this meeting was in September 2014. And I remember he told me even then that you guys forget about Kashmir because we are determined to get rid of Article 370. And it will happen. It will happen. He would not give me any timeline, but he said it will happen, definitely happen. So you, Pakistan, should be worried more about quote-unquote POK and Gilgit-Baltistan. So I give all these details in my book to show to the world or to show to the people of Pakistan as to how we messed up our Kashmir policy and Kashmir diplomacy over the last so many years. But it is still time. I end up in my conclusion, in my epilogue, that still there is a time. We have not lost everything. There is still time to put our act together and see as to what can be done. But Hurriyat leadership, at times it was very difficult to bring them under one roof. And that was, one of the tasks which I was given was to bring them under one roof. And I remember that at one stage we wanted to have a lunch at the High Commission, and I requested all the Hurriyat leaders to let's have this lunch together. But some of I would not name them. Some of the leaders refused point blank that they would not sit with them, sit with that person or with that person. So I encountered these difficulties, but I am glad that after Burhan Bani's martyrdom, at least this joint resistance leadership came up, and I was very glad, and I congratulated all the three leaders. So then we had made some beginning in that direction too. But then once I left in 2017, I do not know then what subsequently happened. But I was making some improvement, some progress towards bringing all the Hurriyat leadership together, because that was one of my missions, I would say. And I would say I had some success because these leaders started talking to each other at least. But then things change. What to do?
Aslam, if I may ask a follow-up question, I know it's probably a little bit controversial, but you mentioned the martyrdom of Burhan Wani. After the martyrdom of Burhan Wani, he became it's something that you said, he became an icon, like lead icon, and he became one of those icons. Ashraf Sehrai Saab was, he was killed inside jail. He was martyred inside jail. Why wasn't there enough hullabaloo? Why wasn't there enough shore in regards to Ashraf Sahrai Sahab, who was not just an icon in the modern era, but historically he has been one of the staunchest advocates of Pakistan and right to self-determination. He sacrificed his own son. Why wasn't there more noise in regards to the justice that needed to be brought to him, but also criminalizing India in that manner?
Because we when Ashraf Sahrai Sahab passed away, or he was killed, as a matter of fact, as you rightly pointed out, he was martyred. Pakistan was busy, promoting Palestine, and we never, thought of these things. In Pakistan, as I said directly, that Pakistanis have grown indifferent somehow. And that is very unfortunate. And people in Pakistan who are at the helm, they do not have any idea as to how to go about these things. They believe that upload that they can do at the moment, and they everything is being done for the domestic political consumption. And this is where I have huge differences. Because I strongly feel that domestic politics, okay, all politicians do that, and that is understandable. But then, Kashmir is not about your domestic politics. So I feel sorry that we have not been able to project the martyrdom of Ashraf Sahrai Sahab, and everybody took it as if he died a natural death. And then, as I said, underlined earlier, that our contacts with India, Pakistan has been losing ground on Kashmir because of these talks. Because, and this is what is happening, because we are in touch with them on the back channel. So I do not know as to how to interpret this, but it looks to me that at one point in time, Modi was a fascist. Our leadership would not, get tired of labeling him as a Nazi. But all of a sudden, where that narrative is gone? Do you hear our Prime Minister or Foreign Minister repeating those things? Not at all. So this shows how, we have no really policy, Kashmir policy or Kashmir diplomacy as such. We are moving from taking one step here, taking two steps there, and this is how we are. So this is what I can respond to your question. Yeah.
It's perfect, sir. Rehana, we've been waiting for quite long. Rehana and then Saad Bhai. Rehana, will you please?
Assalamu alaikum, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to. Hello, can you hear me?
Right. Yes.
Hello?
Please go.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum to everybody, and especially to our special guest Abdul Basit today. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to come forward and welcome Aslam and then ask a few questions. Basit Sahab, I have like one or two questions to ask from you, and then after that, I can take part in the Kashmir debate as well. My first question is we actually hear India always going on about Kulbhajan Yadav, saying that he is not being treated well by the Pakistan government, and they are not giving him the opportunity to actually put his part forward, and they keep on saying that he is actually not the agent for them. So my question is, while India is actually trying its best to actually get Yadav out of Pakistan, has Pakistan asked India that if they actually are trying their best to get Yadav out, what are they doing for the political Kashmiri prisoners? So in return, are they giving them the facilities? Are they letting them to actually come forward and actually put their points forward? Because this doesn't seem fair at all, that a person who has been caught with evidence and the other Kashmiris who should not be actually be taken out of Kashmir, because Kashmir is a disputed area. So is Pakistan thinking to actually do the same with India, in exchange of Yadav? And my other question, which I wanted to, is a suggestion actually, because recently we've been hearing that a lot of Kashmiris have been committing suicide, and there are many reasons behind it. And I think the biggest reason is that they don't see a future in Kashmir, and they actually feel like Pakistan is not doing much, as they trust Pakistan and they have no hope with India. So I was just wondering, because children are not going to school, women are not trained to take care of themselves or in their family, like in case something goes wrong with like first aid and other things. I was wondering that if Pakistan can put a proposal to United Nations to actually like help the Kashmiri people or towards Indian side with like a satellite where they can be educated, like children can be educated and women can be educated with like first aid and other things. Because if Pakistan tries to do it, they are going to label Pakistan that they are giving them training, and in that way it's not going to cost anybody anything, because if they do it through a channel, they will have to buy a license, or they will have to have a television, and they will have to actually go through a lot of things. But if this is done on satellite, in that way they can get help from the satellite, and United States can be the middle person, so they can't say that Pakistan is actually taking advantage or they are actually have some other plans. So what would you like to say about this? Thank you.
Thank you very much. About your first question, Kulbhushan Jadhav, rest assured that India doesn't want him back in India. Because it wants the focus to remain on Kulbhushan Jadhav. So if they get him back, then the focus will shift on other issues. So I think from their viewpoint, it serves their interest that if they kind of, complicate the issue legally, and they will continue doing that. And Pakistan, perhaps we also realize that it is difficult for us to hang him. So we are also kind of, would like this issue to continue like this. So we would not release him nor execute him. So it will, the legal game, the legal ball will, we'll continue playing the legal ball, and this is how things will be. So nobody is sending Kulbhushan Jadhav back to India, nor is India really very keen to have him back. This is what my assessment is. And that is how it is being complicated legally. Involvement of ICJ and many other things on even consular access, what to talk about the real substantive issues. So there is no room to negotiate because India is not interested to get him back.
So with the political prisoners, like Kashmiri political prisoners, is there any way that Pakistan can actually try to support them?
That we are discussing. That is under discussion. And as I said earlier, that needs to be done up front because that is a very serious issue and you want all political prisoners to be out. And that is under discussion, I can tell you this much. Whether we succeed or not to get them out, that is a different question, but I can assure you that...
Sir, can Pakistan involve the rest of the world regarding the human rights situation? Because now it's
why not? We can. Provided we have a plan of action. This is what I'm decrying for the last so many. That here is the point. We all these dimensions can be done and can be pursued very effectively, in my view, provided we move forward. We know what we are doing. So haphazard efforts do not create results, in my view. We can make some moves here and there, but and then somehow, and that is again very unfortunate, that during the last 10-15 years, our institutions have lost the ability to sustain initiatives. They take an initiative and then they lose. It is lost somewhere. That is another problem. We have lost the ability to lead things to their logical conclusion, to sustain efforts. That is the key. So let's hope that our contacts work on the back channel does lead to something good for the prisoners in occupied Kashmir.
That's a very much needed thing. Saad Bhai has been waiting, and then we go back to Kosha Bhai. Saad Bhai, please. Saad Bhai, can you hear me? Okay.
I was still waiting for the second question because it was regarding like suicide in IOK, and I think that counseling for the Kashmiris is much needed. And as I did say earlier, that like if we can involve America and the satellites, so like at least in that way we can give them care.
Yeah, it was a good suggestion. I think people who are in occupied Kashmir, they can work out something along with Pakistan, and diaspora can play an important role in this, because you gave it as a suggestion, so I thought not to respond to that.
Okay, thank you.
Saad Bhai, can you hear me?
I think Saad's connection is
I cannot.
Connecting. So let's move on to the next one.
Yeah, so there's been some issue. Yes, sir, I have a very important question. It's regarding the uranium theft in India. I don't know why world is not talking about it. I just want to give you a quick summary to it. So in May 2021, there was 7 kg of uranium that was stolen by 7 guys. And they were, I'm not sure if they were caught or not, but the report said the 7 kg uranium. And it actually started since 2003. It was the first when 225 grams of the milled uranium was stolen. Then 2008, low-grade uranium was stolen. Then again in 2009. Then in 2013, state-owned mine in Chakarand, where 100 kg of uranium was stolen. And now recently in May 2021. So my question regard to this short summary will be, while India and Afghanistan are part of the propaganda that Pakistan's nuclear arsenal is not in safe hands, but India herself has been proven not to be safe at all. So now the uranium theft incidents in India has happened. So what do you think Pakistan and international community, how should they react to it? And what do you think should be the steps that should Pakistan and international, the world should take to keep the Indian arsenal safe? Because I think it's a clear threat to Pakistan and to the whole region. What are your comments?
I think Pakistan's our standards are impeccable. But whereas we have seen time and again that how we found these loose material, nuclear material in India. So this is not for the first time. And I think Pakistan has taken up these issues with the concerned agencies, IAEA, because this is in violation of the Convention on Physical Protection of Nuclear Materials of 1980. The government our government has taken up and tried to at IAEA, I think they have taken up this issue. But obviously, India is a country which does all these things with impunity somehow. Nobody is ready to take notice. Pakistan has done what could be done. And beyond that, I think it is for the world to see as to how dangerous it is.
Sure. Please requesting Mike. Somehow I can't see him. Asif Bhai, would you like to say something about it while you're raising hand?
Yeah, because probably this will be the last comments I'll make here. Look, I'll not go about the diplomatic ties. I'll talk about, I belong to the ground, I'll talk about the ground situation. Whenever I know there is a strong lobby in Kashmir, in Pakistan right now, who want some sort of friendship, so-called quote-unquote friendship with India, let us all understand. There is a big slogan in Kashmir, Pakistan se rishta kya la ilaha illallah. and I'm not totally apologetic about it. I believe in this slogan, and I'll believe whether I'm living, whether I'm dead. So whenever you feel like that the urge of becoming friends with India is so great, please make sure that there are thousands, not hundreds, but thousands of kids from Kashmir who prefer to keep the flag of Pakistan on their bodies, not the white thing on their bodies when they are dying. Remember, when you feel like you need to make some parallel channels of talks with India, remember there are Pakistani kids who have fought valiantly in the Kashmir Valley and are still in the graves there. Whenever you feel like things are not going well, you need some sort of liberty, you need some sort of breathing. Somebody close the mic.
Yeah, Mukhtar bhai, can you just put your mic off?
Asif bhai mute करके unmute करें. Mute it and then unmute it.
Mukhtar bhai.
Whenever you, just the last thing. Whenever you feel like that it is the time to be friends with India, make sure there is no more Kashmiri Muslim living in Kashmir. Till the last soul breathes in Kashmir, there will be no friendship with India. And even if there is any attempt to make a friendship with India, it has to be only freedom of Kashmir. No ifs, no buts.
There is no two way to it. There's no saying to it anymore. We know that's how it is now. Saad bhai, what do you think? You want to say something, please?
Thank you for the opportunity. I personally have Kashmir issue very close to my heart. My grandfather fought Kashmir Liberation War in 1948-65. He happens to also design the Azad Kashmir flag. So we carry the legacy in our family. It's saddening to hear for me after seeing over 100,000 Kashmiris' lives sacrificed for the Kashmir cause. Pakistan lost 80,000 plus lives in the last decade, and all are pointing towards one enemy. I'm not going to. I also heard some accounts from my Kashmiri friends who are living inside Jammu, Kashmir, like Indian occupied Kashmir. I heard the torture they face, the extortion they face. They have to pay money, their children's life, and third-degree torture they are giving. I'm not going to those details right now. So my question just is that, resting my feelings aside, so my question is that since Abdul Basit Saab was working in the system and still he has good connections, there are many more former diplomats living in Islamabad. So why don't we think that it is essential for us to have a diplomatic Kashmiri desk in our all missions? Why can't they pursue this particular issue to government of Pakistan, that we have a Kashmir desk who focus on the concerns about the Pakistan? Sorry, my little one is here. So one question was about this, and secondly, this way they can also engage the Pakistani diaspora, the Kashmiri diaspora living ahead. Unfortunately, there's not much lead present abroad. So at least since his expertise were in the Foreign Office and he has his friends inside the diplomacy, can't they focus on this, that Pakistan government should have a Kashmir desk? A related question is, we have Azad Jammu Kashmir government and AJK government has a legitimacy over AJK. I happen to know that there are some reserved seats for the Jammu Kashmir, Indian occupied Jammu Kashmir people who can be member of parliament. can we select any individuals like who are living as a migrant inside Pakistan from the Indian occupied Kashmir who migrated to Pakistan? Can't we give them a voice? They can give leadership calls without being under arrest. Kept under arrest. So this two-way we can actually mobilize. I'm just talking about the productive way. How can we help in this cause? What are your thoughts on this? And also please cover the China, which is now involved. China is very much part of the issue since its movement. So we have not discussed that. What are your thoughts about that? And later on, if you can give chance to Karen after Mukhtar Bhai. That's everything what I have to say. Abdul Basit Saab, did you heard my question? If you can address, please.
I think he's having maybe some troubles. Mr. Basit, can you please hear us? Okay, I think he's having some troubles. Maybe he will get back soon. Meanwhile,
that's very important. We don't need glitches. Even the slightest of the glitches is not good for any of the diplomatic stuff. I know we have been breeding traitors. We have been breeding collaborators. We have a lot of. India is spending a lot of money in Kashmir, and there are a lot of traitors, a lot of collaborators from Kashmir. But what we need to understand that for every collaborator, there is at least 1,000 loyal Kashmiri. For every this pro-India politician, there are at least 10,000 Kashmiri souls whose hearts breathe for Pakistan, whose hearts breathe for Islam, whose hearts breathe for whatever is connected to the Kalima Shahadat La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So there should not be a single diplomatic or a diplomatic mistake. We cannot afford it. Neither Pakistan can afford it, nor Kashmir can afford it. That's what I want to say to all my brothers and sisters of Pakistan.
Sir Basit, can you hear us? Okay, he cannot. I think we have WhatsApped him, so we messaged him. So let's see how he responds. But Asif bhai, I just want to say you from the Pakistan, from us, that we do not have any contradictory feelings to anything that you have said. Is exactly the same in our hearts, even more. We also attach a little bit of guilt with it, not a little bit, actually a lot, because we really feel that we should have, must have, could have, and would have done more. If there wouldn't be so many issues with Pakistan, so many corruption, so many things that I think if I'll just speak, I'll speak a lot of politically incorrect stuff. So I just will try to keep my mouth shut about it. But the thing is, that we should have done most, and this thing lives in our hearts with the guilt, and but you know that the guilt sometimes drives you to do a lot more and to compensate the stuff that you haven't done, and that what me and a lot of Pakistanis are trying to do in our individual capacity. So may Allah accept our efforts, and may Allah give us encouragement to do even more. Rehana, you were just raising hand if you wanted to say something. Meanwhile, we're waiting for Abdul Basit Sahib to come back, so we just have to keep it going.
I was actually agreeing to yourself, like whatever you are saying is actually true, because sometimes we do get told by Kashmiris on like IOK side, like what is happening, and then what is Pakistan doing, because they actually treat us like a voice of Kashmir, because like at the moment they actually can't actually say much because of India, even of social media, like they are not in a position to actually engage much, although they do try to pass on the like commerce and messages and how they feel about India. I would only like to say for my part is I've been reading about the meeting which has taken place with like Modi and the Kashmiri leaders, and I feel that it's a great disappointment. Because if we read all of the comments and the statement, we can only feel one thing, that all the leaders, all the Kashmiri leaders who have been rejected from all of us on the 5th of August 2019 after the abrogation of Article like 370 and 35A, all of them have agreed that they don't mind having elections in Jammu and Kashmir if the statushood is restored. So what it feels like, it's all about power game. They just want their position back, and they want things to go back as they were going on. And they don't mind, like, if India has elections and they can make Kashmir a part of it, but they don't want to let go of these, like, special status. Now, I just find this very disgraceful, like, towards the suffering of the people of Kashmir, especially the leaders, like the true Kashmiri leaders who are either in prison or who were not invited to the meeting because they knew that if they come to the meeting, they are only going to say one word, which is Azadi, nothing more than that. But at the same time, I can see Congress did actually say that, like, if Congress comes into power, they will not only give the status back to Jammu and Kashmir, they will also give the right to the domicile, the people who are actually Kashmiris. They will get their jobs back, and the land is going to be actually protected. They will want the Pandits back, like in Kashmir, like they were there before 1989. At the same time, they would like to be working on some projects over there to actually make Kashmir better. But the question is that, like, although Congress is saying all these things, but all of them have only one thing in their mind, that they don't want to let go of Kashmir, and having like a referendum is letting go of Kashmir. I would only say that the solution at the moment is, like, instead of asking them to actually like reinstall the status, maybe they should just say one thing, that the status was temporary, as India is keep on saying, and the status has been there for about 72 years, because from the last 2 years we didn't have it. So although we had the status for 72 years, maybe it's about time that everybody can push and they can get a referendum. I know what I'm saying is maybe not making much sense at the moment, but I think that's the only thing, because we keep on asking for the status, and then I know, and even most of us know, that I don't think they are going to do that, because if they wanted to do it, they will not take it away. But if they are pressurized by the world, the only thing I can think is that apart from election, they might say that, okay, we can offer like Kashmir, the status of a 371C. That's what I see, because like they have some other states in India which have a special status, but nobody has a status like A370, because that's the only status Kashmir had in the whole subcontinent. So that's what I can say, that if they are pressurized, they might offer like a 371C, because in that way they can control Kashmir as well. And although it will be under like India, but at the same time, Kashmir will have some power there. Yes. But this is my opinion.
Sorry, Hanaj, I'm so sorry. I'm cutting you. I just wanted to say that Abdul Basit Sahib messaged that he can listen, but he cannot speak.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Perfect,
yes.
Sir. Please, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead. I'm listening now.
Okay. Because Koshabhai told me you can only listen, so I was just going to ask you to rejoin, but now it's
Can I interrupt for a second? Okay. Sir, रेहाना जी से पहले साद भाई ने कुछ क्वेश्चंस किए थे. अगर आपने वो सुने तो आप उनका जवाब दे सकते हैं. अगर नहीं तो साद भाई फिर वापस क्वेश्चंस करेंगे और टिल द टाइम रेहाना कंटिन्यू करेंगे, क्योंकि हमें और क्वेश्चंस आने वाले हैं इसके बाद. तो थैंक यू
जी, because now we are just formally moving to the question answer session. Will that be okay with you, Abdul Basit Sahib?
Yes, there was some problem in my internet, I think. So
not perfect. Yes. So Saad bhai, will you like to repeat the question? Or Saad bhai, can you hear?
Yes. If Abdul Basit sir, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, I will. Can you guys?
I have lots of questions, so please, everybody, just quickly, so that we can take maximum questions for us.
Yeah, I will not go in all detail. I'll come to the point which I question. Like, let me recollect my thoughts. My question was specifically relating to setting my personal feelings aside. Since area of expertise of Mr. Abdul Basit Saab is foreign service, now he's ex-diplomat. He will have some friend circle or people who are well connected. He should be supposed to be well connected within Islamabad with other diplomats. Can't they do a movement within the diplomacy to be more to accelerate the effort for Kashmir cause in any productive way? Like they can pursue for government of Kashmir, government of Pakistan to have a Kashmir desk inside their diplomatic missions, so that there is per point of contact or person of contact is present inside missions of Pakistani consulates abroad, where the Kashmiri diaspora and the Pakistani diaspora can also connect, and there is there is no disarray in the narrative building, and there is a common cause. If they can pursue on this as a target, this will be a great help for Kashmir cause, because there is no Kashmir desk whatsoever. That's why there is no consistent policy. Even inside Foreign Office, what I understand, there is no Kashmir desk or Kashmir cell which is specifically working on that. This is very important point if he can put light on that. Secondly, my question was regarding Azad Kashmir government, which we have in Pakistan. They, I may be wrong, there are some seats reserved for member of parliaments which can be elected from illegally Indian occupied Kashmir. Can we have representation of those from the migrants who are migrant from the Indian occupation and are right now living inside AJK? They come on those seats, represent and provide the leadership vacuum which we are facing right now within the valley. At least we have someone who are speaking kosher language, who are Kashmiri from the Indian occupied Kashmir territory, and they represent them, and they can call their shots, they can give the direction, the leadership in the vacuum which is currently present. So these were my two questions, and third was correlated. We did not discuss importance of China with Kashmir issue, since China has claimed some lands, and what is the importance of that. So Mr. Abdul Basit Saab, with considering whole your respect and due respect, if you can address these and you can give that we can achieve something on these things if we focus on.
Thank you very much for your two questions and one suggestion. As for your two questions, I think it would be far more effective if Kashmiris in Pakistan or in Azad Jammu and Kashmir, if they, make some plan to reach out to the diplomatic community in Pakistan, and that should be done on a kind of regular basis. Government of Pakistan, the Foreign Office does invite diplomats to brief them.
No, I can hear him quite clear.
Yeah, we can hear.
So that would be far better if Kashmiris themselves reach out to these the diplomatic corps in Islamabad and to tell them their story, the Kashmir story. That would be far more effective. Although the Foreign Office does its job, though it needs to inject more vitality into that. I fully agree. As for your second question, in all Pakistan missions abroad, we have unnecessarily created this Kashmir desk. In all missions abroad, we do have a focal point, not now, for the last so many years, who is or she does the Kashmir issue, takes care. There are focal points for Kashmir in every mission in Pakistan. Rather, every head of mission, all heads of mission abroad, ambassadors, high commissioner, they do work for Kashmir. There is no need for having desk for Kashmir. It's just, the more we create such desks and centers, the more confusion we create. Cause by Islamabad. If Islamabad gave its full to this cause, then missions also automatically get activated. They also may go out of their way then. So everything starts with Islamabad, in my view. So there is no need, as I've been working in different missions. In every mission, we have a person who is designated for Kashmir issues. So there is no, in my view, there is no really a need to create more layers of bureaucratic, more layers, add more layers to that. As for your suggestion, I think it is not a bad idea. So let's hope that we can discuss it with people here, and let's hope that see how their response is. But we are all waiting for elections in Azad Jammu and Kashmir. Let's hope that things, we would have a reasonably peaceful election and reasonably, good outcome we're all expecting. Let's see how things really go.
Thank you so much. Riaz Bhai, you wanted to say something and then we move into the next speaker.
Before Riaz Bhai comes, just Abdul Basit Sahab, maybe it's my personal experience in Canada. After 5 August 2019, I called an embassy to see what we are organizing. There was not a good response which I received. So I thought that there should be more. After that as well, I had seen many community living here. They want to know, but there is no direction from the embassy. Maybe we have to lift up the work if there is already some point of contact.
Yeah, it all depends on the head of mission, on the ambassador himself or herself. If even if you have a Kashmir desk, and if the head of mission, ambassador is not, his heart or her heart is not into that, then obviously no matter how many desks you create, it would not make a difference. Even if you have one individual, in the embassy, and if his heart is at the right place, he or she can achieve wonders, in my view. So desks do not really make any difference. It is important is that the person who is leading the team, he or she should have her heart at the right place, and he goes out of his way to make a difference.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah, and a very good evening to everyone. First reflections, then a question, rather two questions to Ambassador Abdul Basit. It is very ironic that the responsibility which is basically on the shoulders of Pakistan, state of Pakistan, is being relegated on the shoulders of Kashmiris in diaspora. When a state like Pakistan cannot fulfill its responsibility, how can a very little meager diaspora spread across continents can do that? Second, my question to Ambassador Basit, too much of beating around the bush. All the nations, member states of the United Nations, including Russia, I recall statement of permanent representative of Russia to the UN, when the first meeting on Kashmir in 50 years happened, he also referred to UN resolutions. And the historic statement of UNSG, Antonio Guterres, on August 8, 2019, after India re-annexed Kashmir. Make no mistake, Kashmir was annexed in 1947, then this, through the facade of this Article 370, which Pakistanis are too much excited about. He said that yes, Kashmir is on the agenda of UN, but then Pakistan and India have a bilateral mechanism. No country refuses to acknowledge that Kashmir is a dispute. Its final status has yet to be decided, and it is to be decided by the people of Kashmir. But then they add, there is an adage, and I did move out of this space quite a few times. I believe I missed it, but I did not hear about it from Ambassador Abdul Basit, that it is the Shimla Agreement that buried Kashmir at international forums. the wailing and the chest beating that your foreign office or the or any other offices that represent Pakistan across the world, that international community must come and help resolve Kashmir. Please go to the Shimla Agreement, which of course mentions that the issues between India and Pakistan, if they have any international bearing, like Jammu and Kashmir, will be solved according to UN resolutions, but then is clearly mentioned, rather it is clearly drafted that the mechanism will be bilateral. Now, since you have given many excuses that we have diplomatic issues, we have economy is not well, there are stability issues, there are terrorism issues. So before we blame others, I would like Ambassador Basit to also reflect on what Shimla Agreement has done to Kashmir dispute, rather resolution of Kashmir dispute. First. Second question regarding elections. I recall words, rather the last interview of Saida Sayendrabi, who is in jail, in Tihar jail. She says in the last interview she did, rather the reporter had to pay for that. She says that the biggest challenge to resistance movement in Kashmir is the political writ of India. She refers to the pro-India competitor class who participate in the elections held under the barrel of gun. Despite the fact that it is clearly mentioned that the local municipality elections held in Kashmir have no bearing on Kashmir, but India has been exploiting it for its own reasons, telling world that, see, Kashmiris are reposing faith in the so-called democracy of India. And many Kashmiris, of course, also beat this drum. So, since you have spent time in New Delhi since 2014 until 2017, when two big events happened, that first Modi came to power and then the elections happened in Jammu and Kashmir, wherein Mufti Muhammad Saeed, who is popularly known as a collaborator as well, the Caravan magazine had a cover story on him, that, if anybody can save Jammu and Kashmir from Modi wave, which is PDP. Can you recall, or if there, not just recall, has there been any communication from Islamabad to High Commissioner of Pakistan in New Delhi regarding backing elections in Kashmir, rather covertly supporting elections in Kashmir? For us, these elections are the biggest setback to resistance movement in Kashmir. It is the second thing. And the last thing, and I'll stop there, is Mr. Muzammil referred to it. Why was there muted response to custodial killing of Shaheed Mohammad Ashraf Sarai? And rather, it is not a question to Pakistan, to Mr. Ambassador Abdul Basit himself, his response was also muted. Has this to do anything with your stint in Kashmir, since you were engaged with Hurriyat leadership? So has this, we do follow you, that's why I'm here listening to you. Has this anything to do with that, your muted response to the custodial killing of Tehreek-e-Hurriyat chairman Shaheed Mohammad Ashraf Sarai? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and I appreciate your
yes, and I would
appreciate
like
your questions.
Yes, and I understand there's Maghrib time.
Yeah, as for your last question, I've already commented on that, that our response was not, I think, appropriate the way it was muted, no doubt, and I fully agree with you. We have not been able to do justice. As for your other questions, elections, no, we never supported these farce elections in occupied Kashmir, and our position has been very, very clear. Nor did Hurriyat ever support these elections. So there is no reason as to why Pakistan would be supporting such a farce activity in occupied and annexed Kashmir. As for your first question, what was that, sir? About your first question was about what?
I think he's left.
Okay. No, he's still there. Can you just pause?
Yes.
Might pick him again.
Okay.
Riyaz.
Okay. Meanwhile, I just want to.
Because of the crash, we need to remove the speakers.
But it's somehow.
What was his first question?
I guess it was related the state responsibility rather than putting on too much on the diaspora.
No, I never said that it is only for diaspora. I think diaspora activities, diaspora would form a part of the larger strategy. So they should be made part of our, plan of action. It is everybody's responsibility. Obviously, you cannot exclude the state itself, the government itself. Pakistanis, their role is important. So diaspora's role is very important when governments are not responding to Pakistan's demarches. Then the role of diaspora becomes hugely important. So in that context, I think it is not like, as I was suggesting, to put everything onus on diaspora. But I meant was to also mobilize them as well as part of the larger strategy in order to get more, to be more effective in our Kashmir diplomacy.
Okay, Ibn Haider Bhai, I think you wanted to say something? And then Black Hawk. Quick, because Sir has to go, so we need to just wind it up.
Assalamu alaikum. His Excellency Abdul Basit Saab, thank you so much for giving me chance. First thing, just I request to you that hope you will listen to me. First thing is like Riyaz Saab was asking about Shimla Agreement, how it stopped. So if you will just answer his question first, then I will put a question of mine. First question of Riyaz Saab was like how
Shimla Agreement, obviously, it was decided to Pakistan was open to, at that point in time, under very difficult circumstances, Pakistan negotiated that, and you understand the backdrop. Now, but now almost 50 years have elapsed, and the bilateral talks have not resulted in anything concrete on Kashmir. So how long can Pakistan be engaged bilaterally to resolve this issue? But nothing stops Pakistan to raise this issue, because the very Shimla Agreement starts with the chapeau paragraph that Pakistan and India, they refer to UN Charter as well. So if bilateralism is not helping, Pakistan can always go to other countries. But secondly, now after the 5th August 2019, I think India has since unilaterally changed the entire context. In my view, the Shimla Agreement has become irrelevant, frankly speaking. So even it had become irrelevant back in 1984, when India, going against the very letter and the spirit of the Shimla Agreement, occupied the Siachen glaciers, which was against the provisions of the Shimla Agreement. So that agreement, in my view, now after 5th August 2019, is hardly relevant. And one would hope that Pakistan would be far more, vigorously raising the Kashmir issue on the at international forums.
Now, like my question to you, Abdul Basit Saab, my personal question. I myself belong to a Shia community in Kashmir, and we consider Pakistan as our true brother and our true spiritual brother, rather. And truly, you are our good friends, of course, and we don't consider Pakistan as some other nation. Of course, you are us and we are you. And there is no difference between Pakistan and Kashmir. But the thing and the question is, when you call some part of yours, when you call it jugular vein, there should be efforts double efforts from your side to actually do something better. You should not give excuses of these economic sanctions and other. Sorry to use this sentence here. Like Iranian nation is facing 40-year sanctions, but they are still supporting Palestinian resistance and Palestinian nation like any, as if it's their own personal issue. So we, after Almighty Allah, have Pakistan as our great supporter, and Pakistan should leave these excuses aside, and Pakistan should do more. And how do you think, and how do you see that Pakistan in future will do something out of these excuses, using these excuses like part and other things, because we cannot wait for more 70 years, because we have already lost more than 100,000 people here. Thank you so much, Basit Saab.
Thank you very much for your remarks, sir. I think you cannot define struggles in terms of years. You may succeed in 70 years, you may not succeed in 140 years, who knows? After all, we got our independence from British imperialism. It took us more than 150 years. So these such movements have their own dynamics. As far as Pakistan is concerned, this much I know, Pakistan can never abandon Kashmiris. As I said, there are issues, there are problems, and the previous governments have also, wreaked havoc with this issue because of their own some inclination. So we have a long history. But I know that though people of Pakistan somewhat, I feel that there is some indifference creeping in, but at the end of the day, my majority of people do feel for Kashmiris and for their cause. There is no question about that. And no government can openly deviate from the cause of Kashmir, in my view, because that will be politically suicidal for any government. So people of Pakistan are standing with their brothers and sisters in Kashmir. There is no question. But you're absolutely right. We need to do more. Kashmiris need to do more. All of us need to do more. And unless there is a collective effort, I think we would not be able to achieve our results. It may take longer. But as I said in my initial remarks, despite all the problems, glitches, I'm still optimistic that inshallah, people of Kashmir will get their freedom, their right to self-determination. I have no doubt about that. Though it may take somewhat longer than we expected, but Pakistanis are standing behind you, beside you guys, people, and there is no question that Pakistan would ever give up. Though we are talking to Indians, that is a fact, but we hope that these talks would result in something good.
You will have to mute.
Thank you very much.
Black Hawk wants to ask some question, but I think he's gone now. I think Sir Basit, you also have to go. It's been Maghrib. If there is no more questions, actually, so one question.
And one last comment and one last question. As a son and one who truly believes in strong Pakistan, I think it's just a suggestion from your son that Pakistan should strengthen within. They should do something from media perspective. Pakistan should strengthen their media. And speaking about Kashmir, Pakistan should bring some change. They should speak about Kashmir on daily basis, and there should be held some programs about Kashmir so that like the Kashmir issue should be highlighted in their programs. I think this is my suggestion, just a suggestion, Abdul Basit Saab, that if media, Pakistani media can do this favor to Kashmiri Muslims, as you call us a part, you are our brothers, and you should do this thing so that you can highlight what's going on in Kashmir, and Pakistan state should also do something to highlight the miseries. We are being suffocated, we are being choked here. So it's the responsibility of state of Pakistan to highlight the issue of Kashmir via their media channels, via their social media platforms. That's all I can say. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Haidarbai. Sir, I also want to raise this very important point that I was almost forgetting, that we have been really, really badly cracked down by India on our social accounts. Any account who tries to even say the name of India or Mr. Modi, they just suspend it relentlessly without any notice. Is there anything Pakistan government should, in your advice, do about it? Because this is what kind of a world are we living in, where we cannot raise our voice on a social platform where everybody can say the things freely they want. It's just us Muslims, it's just us Pakistanis, it's just us Kashmiris who cannot say it. We've been very, very upset because so many of our people are gone for no reason, and then there are Indian accounts who are openly asking for massacres of Muslims and annihilations of Muslims. I can actually send you screenshots, the kind of violent threats they're making against Muslims, and we report them, and no such thing happened, no notice is given. And our account, if we so much as we say that the name India or Israel, it's gone. So what do you have to say, sir? Quickly, I know you're very late, but it's a thing that is in every young Pakistani, Muslim or Kashmiri, it's in their heart. So I had to...
No, I cannot agree more with you. Let's, and let's end this session with recommitting ourselves to the cause of Kashmir. The one thing which I'm taking from this discussion is let's humanize the Kashmir dispute as well. And let's see that how you all, Muzammil and all others, we can start doing these things right away rather than wait. So let's put up 3-4 pictures and start on Twitter this campaign. Let's start with Twitter, if nothing else, and we can retweet. All of us can retweet that, so it reaches to all. Right now, we can retweet. We can tweet a few pictures to make them, icons around the world. So let's begin this work right away. And this is one point which I think has come out of this discussion today.
Because right now, Twitter is actually acting like a BJP media wing, to be honest.
So please do tag me, and we will, inshallah, start working on that.
And sir, there's been so many questions, people asking, DMing me.
Someone questioned me that why we are not talking in Urdu or why we are talking in English.
जी सर, असल में मुझे तो बिल्कुल कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, just because so many international media and journalists covering up, तो इस वजह से I would actually.
It's okay. So that.
But you have, I would really
मुझे एक लास्ट
क्वेश्चन
आप बात कीजिए, and then मुज़म्मिल भाई.
अच्छा, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह ये बहुत ही अच्छा सेशन रहा, बहुत ही नॉलेजेबल था, हमने भी सीखा, इंशाल्लाह आगे भी सीखना है. बस मेरा ये रिक्वेस्ट है, नेक्स्ट टाइम आपको कब when can we have you again?
Give it some space and then we can become on space.
Inshallah.
Thank you very much, and it was a pleasure talking to all of you. Take care of yourself. And inshallah we will stay in touch. Very kind of you. Allah Hafiz. Allah.
Mute your mic, Muzammil bhai, like you can do. Thank you so much. Huge player.
Chalo.
Muzammil bhai.
I think, alhamdulillah, it was good. At least we got to hear from an ambassador that had some experience being in India, communicating with the Hurriyat, and seeing from his perspective what Pakistan's position is and what it should be. So hopefully in the future we'll continue to have discussions, and we should be able to figure out a way forward. I think it's it's important that after discussing the ongoings and the geopolitics and everything that happens in context of Kashmir and Pakistan, we also need to figure. Mukhtar, please put the mic on.
Mukhtar bhai, you need to mute the mic, please. Mukhtar bhai.
भाई आप mute all कर देना.
Okay, so in the context of global politics and economics, FATF, Afghanistan, all these other issues, it's great, but also we need to figure out the way forward. We need to have tangible targets, achievable results, and then implement those ideas so that at least we can also make our contribution towards the liberation of Kashmir. Thank you. Thank you to everybody.
Thank you so much. Mukhtar bhai, who like
Yeah, Mukhtar sir, mic kata band.
Okay, I will just.
या चिकित्सा क्या था ने हेलो या चिक क्या था ने गिल्ली चिकित्सा तो इसे तो मैं गसा ना थी ना में माइक म्यूट ही well I will conclude with this comment that this space
I want some conclusion from you and then Asif bhai and then we end the session.
Yes. So I believe there is a Persian saying, Nishtam Guftam Barkhastam. I hope इसका मतलब है कि निश्तम मतलब बैठे गुफ्तम बात की बर्खास्तम और चल दिए तो आई होप कि ये जो ये स्पेसेस है ये अपना असर छोड़ेगी तो हमें प्रैक्टिकली कुछ करना चाहिए so it should not be निश्तम गुफ्तन and बर्खास्तम. I end on that.
Perfect, sir. Thank you so much, Mukhtar bhai. Asif bhai, your concluding remarks before we end it.
It has been a great session. Thank you, all the guys who made it possible. So, all the talking is important before we go for any constructive actions. I'll thank you guys for making it possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Muzammil bhai, Asif bhai, Mukhtar bhai. It was all yours, collective efforts. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. People who've been helping us, they know Saad bhai, Hamza bhai. I mean, there's so many people. Khushbu bhai, I can't even say so many names. Thank you so much. It was all our effort, and let's try to get him back for the question answer session. I understand so many people wanted to ask a lot of questions. बहुत सारे लोग सवाल पूछना चाह रहे थे. इससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. आप उर्दू में बोले, इंग्लिश में बोले, इससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता. Inshallah, we'll definitely will try to get him back. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a nice rest of the Sunday. Allah Hafiz.